This is episode 18 of Standing Out. Standing Out is a remarkable interview-style podcast with the intention to highlight women and men making outstanding contributions in their field. This podcast is generously sponsored by Think Global. Think Global is a business advisory firm working with women entrepreneurs around the globe to scale their businesses to the next level. Today, I'd like to welcome Steve Baker. Steve is CEO of Brandfolder, a powerfully simple digital asset management platform for storing, sharing, and showcasing your digital assets. Organizations like Slack, OpenTable, Shazam, and Health One rely on Brandfolder to deliver consistent, organized, and efficient brand experiences. Prior to joining Brandfolder, Steve was responsible for business development in Australia and New Zealand as a senior sales executive at NewsGator Technologies. Outside of work, Steve is an avid fisherman, runner, and sports aficionado, and father to his adorable Dutch hound, Rick. Welcome, Steve. Thanks for being here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. I would love to hear a little bit about your transition from doing business development in Australia and New Zealand, and then transitioning into Brandfolder.
It was an awesome transition, although the transition down to Australia was probably a bigger one for me. I'm born and raised in Denver, and so the moving down there for a couple of years gave me an interesting perspective outside of Denver. I was one of the original angel investors with Brandfolder, and obviously for that reason kept a very close eye on it for the time I was down there. And it made a lot of sense given the timing to transition Brandfolder into an organization that really targets mid-market and enterprise level organizations. I was very close with the board and kind of made the pitch to come back to Denver and build this into something that kind of veered from the original vision, which was scary and exciting at the same time.
Wait, so that's interesting. So I love Colorado. I've been here 4 years, and it was one of those things, we just took a risk and just didn't like where we were living in the Midwest and wanted something new. But I will also say I've been to Australia, and that's a pretty incredible place to live. So what made you kind of look at, hey, let me get back to Colorado?
Well, first of all, I will probably die in Denver.
Got it.
I love being in Colorado. I think it has a lot to offer just in terms of lifestyle.
Yeah.
And being in technology and in startups, there's no better place to be.
Yeah.
It's
true. Yeah.
So for me, that was simple. Living in Australia, though, it was very difficult to leave. I was living in Sydney, so beaches and all of the things that come with, living on the coast, which was awesome. So it was, from a lifestyle perspective, it was tough to leave, but coming back to Denver, not that difficult, let's be honest.
Yeah, right. Also great, just in other ways too. So when you were you were an angel investor for Brandfolder. I would love, so many of our listeners are either looking to get investment or looking to invest. Can you share more about how that became a part of what you do? How did you get the opportunity to invest in Brandfolder?
Yeah, so the original team that kind of founded the concept put together a list of angels that some were kind of friends and family based, others were larger Silicon Valley based popular angel investors. And I had tracked the progress of both Chris Lode and Luke Beatty, and very successful exits with their startups. Luke with Associated Content being acquired by Yahoo, as well as Chris Lode, who's on our board. Map My Fitness was acquired by Under Armour, and really good track record in the startup world. This was their next baby, and it made sense to become an angel investor. And in this space, when you're starting out, raising money is, you're spending 80% of your time kind of thinking about how to raise money, whether you're first starting and you're raising money, or you advance to the stage where it's time to do an institutional round. That's been front of mind, and like it is for every startup on earth at this point.
Totally. So what is it, as an investor, what are some things that you're listening for as people are sharing their projects with you? Like, what are some things that when Brandfolder pitched or however it came along, you're like, yes, 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 you checked all my boxes.
Absolutely. Well, for me, it's 100% team based, right? The people, I'm looking to invest in people, and most, institutional investors, as well as just angels in general, that's what they're looking for. Everybody, would love to stumble across a time machine idea where, throwing money at it was low risk, but really you want to look for good people that have a good track record, that have done it in the past, that have good ideas. For me, you can't, underestimate the value of good people.
That's interesting. And it sounds like all the people, they have incredible experiences, and I'm sure that was a pretty easy choice then.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you came back to Colorado. You're based out of Denver. How long have you been back?
So let's see, I've been back for just over 2 years now.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So what is, give us the rundown of sort of what are some of the main things that you have to do in this role?
Yeah. Well, there's, when you're a CEO at a startup technology company, you're basically, you're doing everything. You're everything from to, the collator to, the guy who takes out the dog. So, you're focused early stage on creating a vision that your team can back, right? That's very important. If everyone's not on the same page, it's difficult. You're trying to keep enough money in the bank. We talked about the importance of raising money, and you're trying to build a team that can get you to, where you want to be in terms of your goals. And so that my first 2 years, the first piece of it was raising money. And so I spent 80% of my time early on in, the raise piece of it. And then once the money is in, you've got a big team to build.
Right.
So you go from, fundraiser to recruiter, and, two very different roles.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then, from there, once you've got the team built, you've got to execute on the plan that you pitch to your investors. So, and all along the way, there's, a million other little jobs that come up. You got to build the ping pong table. Somebody has got tables for the event that we've, that we're putting on. And that's the cool thing about, working for a startup. I mean, you're not pigeonholed into a cubicle, that you're doing, a million different things every week.
And that's so interesting that you hit on the team piece and the raising capital piece, because I think it was on Facebook, I just saw an article the other day, and it was something about as you're building the team, they used a better word than what I'm about to use, but it was as you're building the team, sell them on the vision and they'll get behind you. Because a lot of times with startups, there is that tricky piece of capital and being pre-revenue and, being in phases like that where I can speak to my own brand. Maybe this doesn't apply to Brandfolder, but as we grow this, we can't always pay the biggest salaries, but at the same time, we have a team who absolutely believes in our vision and backs that and wants to be a part of it. And so I think that could be good advice as a company is starting up and growing their team.
Totally agree. And you have to walk that line, right? You're looking for top tier talent to build out your vision, but you don't have the resources to pay out the big bonus packages and even the benefit packages that they're used to at their old corporate job. So being able to sell the vision, not just to investors, but to people that will eventually, run your team, that's important. That's the recruiting effort piece of it.
So that's interesting. So on the recruiting effort, are you noticing any trends or things that potential team members may want other than money? So is it like we see those companies out there offering unlimited vacation time? Like, is there anything in that sort of creative outside of the box thinking that has worked for you?
Yeah, I think that's really important. If you look at the median age of our team, you're somewhere in the 27 range. And so very young employees, and you're right, money is not the only thing that they're looking for. Right. Has become one of the things that people look at when they're deciding where to work. A lot of these people, especially if you're a developer with a specific skill set, they can work for any company really that aligns with their technology discipline. So, the culture piece is important. And what we do, we take a fairly unique approach to culture. I mean, we do the things like, we have the kegerator in the office, and we have an vacation policy, but we have a culture committee. that is a non-management committee of 4 people that determine how we spend, some of our off time. So we do.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Once a month, we're doing volunteering stuff. We get involved with STEM. And then they also plan the fun stuff, the happy hours, the birthdays. And I think it's important to have, that team as a non-management component because, they're the ones that are planning the fun. And that's a big benefit for our young employees.
Well, that is really cool. I haven't heard of that sort of team, but I would imagine that's a piece where people just want to sign up for that. It's not like, you get stuck with the fun to make, you know what I mean?
It's a coveted role. It's one person that kind of manages the committee, and then it rotates the people that come in, and it's, everyone wants a piece of that culture committee.
That's really cool. So a lot of times in entrepreneurship, we talk about sort of this roller coaster ride. We have ups and downs, and sometimes we have ups and downs in the same day. Sure. Is there any insight you can share with us of how you recover from some of the downs and you keep motivated and focused?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I wish I remember the speaker, but I was at a lean startup conference and I heard a really good piece of advice that I've carried forward, and I think it really resonated with me. And that's that if you're going to be involved in startup or you're an entrepreneur in general, one of the best characteristics that you can have is the ability to take bad news really well. I wish I could remember the speaker. It was a CEO of one of these conferences. And that's absolutely the case, right? When you are raising money, when you're recruiting, when just day to day, when you're selling software, you're going to get a lot of rejection. You're going to get a lot of news that you may not want to hear. And if you're not able to handle that with poise, then, you're not going to succeed in the startup world because nobody draws a map and follows it from point A to B. Yeah. Even the most successful companies veer and hit, adversity along the way. So you have to be able to take those pits of bad news and handle it well.
Isn't that interesting? It's like, no, I will not invest with you. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Right. You can't storm out. You can't close the door. You have to pretend that this is really good feedback. So, that's part of the deal. And if everyone said yes, then everyone would be in startups and it wouldn't be as fun.
You know what? There is so much truth to that in business and just in your personal life, taking that bad news well. And I think it's because there's emotion attached to it. And so many advisors say, detach, don't have the emotion there. But in my view, we're all people and we care about this and we want it to be successful. And it is an emotional ride. Yeah. And so for me, that doesn't always work, taking the emotion out. But as much as you can look at that no, and if they do give some feedback, I have found that generally is pretty valuable, and you can take that and refine or tweak or whatever you need.
Yeah, I agree. I think you learn more on the losses than you do the wins.
Right.
When we are involved in a competitive software deal with a big company, it's great when you win them. Obviously, that's the goal, but when you lose them, you really learn about yourself. You learn about the competition. And that way, when you go into the next battle, you're more prepared.
Yeah, that's really great. In terms of marketing, so this is interesting. So one of the pieces of advice I was given early on was build an audience before you need it. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, and I think this is an interesting question because a lot of times when you're focusing on that mid-market and enterprise level, it's so relationship driven. So what are your thoughts on building an audience, say on the social media side or on an email list or something like that versus relationship?
Yes. Well, I think they're both important. With us, it's even more important. We're selling to creative and marketing people. Mm-hmm. So our content that we're putting out, whether it's social media, it's our blog, it's our events that we're doing, it has to hit the level of expectations that creative and marketing people look for. And these are the hardest people to market to. They're going to be the most critical of content. And we've got an advantage at Brandfolder in that we've got a built-in marketing tool within our platform. And when people buy Brandfolder, the first thing they do is they share it out to other marketing teams. And so that's our best lead source. And so that's how we get the name out. And so and that's lucky for us to have that. But we also put a lot of emphasis on more traditional marketing methods like pay-per-click, and we do things with G2 Crowd and Forrester to make sure that we're discoverable when people are analyzing the space. But that it's nice to have some sort of creative way to get your name out, because when you're a small startup, it's very hard to scale up to 1 million users in the first. And so you need creative ways of doing it without traditional ways, which cost money. If you're going to increase PPC spend, there's a dollar amount associated with that. The companies that are really successful build brand identity without the big traditional spend. They're doing creative things to get there.
Yeah, that's really good. One of the hardest things that I hear from newbie entrepreneurs or people in the startup phase usually isn't about that technical skill side of things. It's more on the personal side, like the ego side, essentially. So it's the, am I good enough? Do I know how to do this? And I'm wondering if you felt that, and if you have any ideas or if you can share any insight into what you do to kind of just kick the ego side of it and just make it happen.
Yeah, I think you have to check the ego at the door once you make the commitment to just get into startups in general. It's very few. If you look at the percentages, it's kind of depressing when you're first starting out, right? It's very few who actually emerge into these unicorn exits. And so you have to take that in a sober way. It's, to me, it's to watch the team grow, to watch, the traction that we're getting in the market. That's the exciting thing. I'm not doing this for anything personal, right? This is about building something special, making our shareholders money, and creating a platform that literally changes the way people see their brand. And that's our goal. That's the thing that excites me. Ego, this is the startup world, right? There are, for every successful startup, there's another one who just raised, $400 million down the road. So,
and that's what you always see. Yeah. Is the unicorn one. So I feel like when the unicorn startups are marketed to us, it's like I start feeling that inferiority. It's like, well, why are they the unicorn? So I think you're right. Check the ego.
Yeah, and you hear their stories. It's not, they stumbled across, different methods too. There's not a science or, a way to ensure that, right? And so,
right.
And that's what's exciting here. We're all trying to build to that level, and some of us will.
Right. No, you're right. So as we close, I would love to know what's one trend or hot topic or something on your radar that you think we'll all be talking about this time next year?
So that's a good question. I would selfishly want to talk about how companies are addressing their content management needs and their digital asset management needs and moving everything into the cloud. That's happening over the next few years.
Hold on, selfish or not selfish. I think that's so true and valid. And I know just by the way we operate, like we're looking to do that, and we don't want to have a bunch of files on our desktop that other team members can't access and all of that. So
there's not an analyst out there that wouldn't tell you that the old method of having on-premise server-based software managing big complex lists of files, that's going away, right? This is all moving into the cloud, and companies that have the right architecture, like Brandfolder, are able to take companies that have the old traditional folder system where they have folders living inside of folders and assets living in multiple places inside those folders, and really putting it into a very intuitive, visually elegant platform that allows for the organization, the management, and the distribution of those assets in a really turnkey way.
Yeah,
you're going to see that happen over the next few years. Brandfolder is going to be a big part of that. There's also just very cool technology that you're hearing about and reading about, things with virtual reality stuff with AI, drone technology, self-driving cars. I think we've hit this, period of exponential technology growth, and it's awesome to watch it happen. And it's
almost like the renaissance of technology. It seems like every day or every week there's something out there that's new, that's somewhat mind-blowing. I was just at at a conference with Autodesk, and they produce a lot of software for engineers. So we were at this sort of table or vendor booth where you could make prosthetic hands for children who have lost hands and portions of their arm. And like, it's just so interesting, you know, how much is happening in the tech world.
Yeah. Yep. And being in Denver, you know, we're right in, you know, between Denver and Boulder, you know, this is one of the big technology corridors in the world. And so this is a fun place to be. You know, we're not Silicon Valley, but I think that's a good thing too.
Yeah, right. Well, on that note, we will end. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.